Okay, hi everyone. This is conflict management. My name is Katie, and I'm with my peers Jacob and Vincent with our new counselor, Miss Salas. And we are going to be talking about depression and suicide today. It's a little bit of a tricky subject, and we're going to try and be sensitive with all of the topics that we cover and the words we say. If you need anything or need to reach out to us, feel free to contact us, and we'll give you that information at the end of the presentation. Okay, Vincent, would you like to start off with talking about depression and having some questions about that?
Yes, I would. Good morning, Miss Salas. Would you say that depression is more common than you think? Like, a lot more people would have it than you would generally think?
I think so. I mean, a lot of people, not just teenagers, adults, older people, like elderly, you know, especially now because of the type of climate we live in, technology plays a lot of role. Excuse me. So I definitely think that, um, yeah, a lot of more people suffer from depression. Some people may not even know that it's depression because, every for every person it's different. Everyone feels a different way. Some people want to sleep, others don't. It kind of just depends. But yeah, I definitely do agree that it's more prominent
Mhm.
nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think some people think that only a certain group of people are affected by depression. Like maybe they would think teens are only affected, but it's interesting how you said like older people are and just everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just off the top of my head, I used to work with elderly, and a lot of them were depressed
Mhm.
because they were isolated. They were home alone. Their kids are grown. They have grandchildren. They're grown, and so they're by themselves. And they don't have anyone to talk to. And sometimes I was the only one that they were able to talk to. And yeah, because yeah, they experience it too. And same thing with you guys as students. Right now you guys are at home, and because of COVID and everything, and it's very prominent for someone at your age to feel depressed or just, whatever it is you're feeling at this time is very common, across the
Mhm.
board.
Mhm. Yeah. Even for me, like I haven't really dealt with depression or suicidal thoughts, but I have felt it like sadness or loneliness during this time, just like when I'm not doing things or not seeing people. So it's definitely more prominent right now.
Yeah, I think anyone could get like that, especially when you're, as Miss Salas said, like isolated. I think generally, like being, like having a period of abstinence and not doing anything or not preoccupying yourself with activities, it can cause you to be like, feel alone or sad. So yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're alone. Maybe you don't can't hang out with your friends, and it's just everyone feels that some sort of connection with you guys because they're all going through the same thing. You guys are all, every situation is different, like I said, but you guys are definitely all have similar instances of feeling like, man, I'm at home. I can't really like go anywhere. I can't hang out with my friends. Like, it's okay to feel those feelings. There's nothing wrong with feeling them, but there's a point where it gets severe.
Mhm.
And that's when you have to realize, oh, okay, like this is when I need to talk to someone if it's getting to that point.
Yeah. Mhm. So,
Ms. Salas, would you say it's more common in teenagers than adults, especially with our distance learning and the heightened stresses of school?
Um, that's a hard one. I mean, yes and no. I think it kind of just depends. As an adult, I mean, I was a teenager once. I didn't have to deal with that. It was very taboo to be like depressed or whatnot. But right now, I think all of the United States, all of every other country that is doing digital learning is at some form, students are feeling exactly like the way you guys are feeling, or depressed or anxiety, any of that. In regards to like adults, I know for a fact there are adults feeling the same way, because, some people have, like your parents, for example, they're working from home, plus you guys are at home. And so everyone's at home at one time, and it can add, stress to you guys because your parents are on the phone all day and you're trying to listen to your Zoom class, and your parents are trying to be on the phone and then they can hear your Zoom class in the background. So it's kind of like, I think it's equally. I wouldn't say that it's more, or maybe it might be a little bit more. I haven't looked at any stats, so I wouldn't know, per se, but I do know that it has become, in general, more prominent in teenagers, just from, being in this field. I have noticed it within the last couple years, but I think because of COVID, yeah, there might be a little bit more higher percentage than adults, but it's ever changing. So there's always going to be one has more than the other. I think looking at stats would probably be a better way for us to figure out, who it's affecting more.
Yeah. Do you think stress is related to feeling depressed or depression?
I think so. If you have a lot on your plate, or maybe things are going on at home and it's causing you to stress out, you can go down the rabbit hole, per se. Just out of personal experience, just of learning things, going to school and all of that, you learn about, different things that may trigger, but it's how I always think about it, and this is just me, is how you perceive it. So you could potentially let it consume you. And there's a difference between letting it consume you and telling yourself, okay, like I need to get out of this funk. But there's stress in everything. When you're driving, you can stress when you're driving. There's stress taking a test. So it kind of just depends on, there's an underlying factor that might be causing that depression. If you're stressed out taking a test, per se, there might be something underneath that may be leading you to be depressed, adding on to the stress, getting anxiety from taking the test, then going into that sort of depression and that going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Aren't those things sort of like, they call them stacking factors, or things that stack onto you for depression?
Yeah. I mean, there's things that can start, you can be feeling fine, I'm great. And then one little thing, there's a lot. Everyone handles things differently. And for some people, like, for example, for me, taking a test, I don't like taking tests, but if I have to do it, I have to do it, whatever. But for other people, it might be a little bit more stressful. Just the idea of, they have I need to get this right. I need to, and they go into their head, and every time they take a test, it's like that. And it's to the point where it's affecting, their moods. It's affecting how they sleep. It's affecting how they eat. So, not everyone sleeps all day with depression. I think some people might think that they just sleep. But it could be a variety of things that they're going through. Maybe they just don't want to come out of their house, or they don't want to talk, or, but yeah, there's always, it starts and it just keeps going down, down, down until it gets to that underlying depression layer of what that person is feeling.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. I think that's really good to hear and learn about some more things. Okay, Jacob, do you want to ask some questions about suicide and feeling that?
Yeah. Ms. Salas, my first question for you is, how could we tell if one of our friends are dealing with suicidal thoughts?
Like if you were just hanging out with them, kind of? Is that what you're
them showing
Well, it depends. A lot of things, there's just different signs that do come up. Like some people start giving things away. They start acting really happy. What else? Or they're a little bit withdrawn. Some people can be a little bit withdrawn. They don't want to share, make up excuses for things, or just want to be, within themselves. It depends on the person. I've heard different things, people that I've known that have committed suicide, and, what they did up until that point. They were okay. They seemed okay, And it was just little things that you notice that, they act all happy. Some people start writing notes or whatever. Definitely when you do have a friend, if you're at that level of being comfortable with that person, then you should be able to feel comfortable in asking them, do you have thoughts of suicide? because, as we were talking to Katie earlier, Mr. Glonner and I, we were saying, you don't, it's okay to be blunt about that question, especially that question, because it is a matter of life or death when you are talking to a friend or just someone you may know and who is feeling that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second question is like, what are some like tips to help them? Like, yeah.
I
if they're having
those thoughts. So obviously maybe you haven't gone through that. You don't know what it feels like. Just being honest with them. I think that's really important, because you don't want to try and say, hey, yeah, I totally know what you're feeling. I've gone through the same thing. Or maybe you've had someone in your family, or maybe, someone that you know. Even then, just being upfront and just saying, I don't know, I don't understand what you're going through, but I could only imagine how you're feeling. But know that I'm here to support you. I'm here to provide you any sort of assistance. And obviously, like if it's a friend, tell an adult. That's one thing that's really important. Because the important part is making sure that that other person is safe. We don't want them to, let's say you're talking to them, you're having that conversation, and then you're like, okay, like, and they tell you, they assure you, oh no, like I'm gonna be fine. And then you go home and then they end up going through with it. And then you're gonna be like, what? It's always good to tell a trustworthy adult, your mom, your dad, anyone that you feel comfortable sharing that. And, sometimes like us as adults, we are mandated reporters. So, if we ever see anything that's not normal, we have to report it. Another thing too, like if, for example, one of you guys were to come talk to us and share, I always let students know if they are sharing, intense, feelings or information. I always say, look, everything you say here is confidential, but I will break that confidentiality if 1, you're hurting yourself, 2, someone's hurting you, or 3, you are hurting someone else. So automatically, you can even say that too. Say, hey, if you're hurting yourself, I'm going to tell a trustworthy adult, because I care about you and I want you to feel better. So it's definitely, providing that support around them. Not necessarily telling them, I know what you're feeling, because, sometimes we don't know what they're feeling. So it's always just good to offer your support and just checking in on them too, after that fact. And just letting them know, hey, I'm still here. I can, whatever you need, if you want to talk, if you just want to hang out and not talk about anything, that's totally fine. Want to go take a walk, just anything that that person would be thankful for, because that's when, I feel like that's something that they would definitely be thankful for, is that that person was there, or you were there in that time of need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think you keep kind of hitting on it. It seems important that we have those good relationships with people so we can ask the hard questions or have the tough conversations, because they need to be had.
Yeah. I think also too, like, even if you don't know the person, but that person is sharing, like, for example, you guys are students. I don't know you very well, but as a counselor, our job is to build that rapport with you guys so that we do get to know you on, not at a complete personal level, but more so like, I understand your background, where you're coming from, what's going on at home, so that I am able to. But sometimes if, there's a student who let's say I've only met with a couple times and I haven't had a chance to build that relationship with that student, that rapport, then they are just, they come in and maybe a teacher was like, hey, the student is really struggling. They're crying in class. I don't know what's going on. They come in my office, and if, the teacher did share something of whatever the student was doing, then I have to be straight up and say, hey, are you thinking about suicide? Mm-hmm. What's your plan? Do you have a plan? Excuse me, things like that, because, sometimes you have to be able to, what's the saying? Be comfortable with being comfortable, or being, I can't, do you guys get what I'm saying?
Being comfortable in the uncomfortable, or
that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, because sometimes, like, you're gonna get, sometimes you might be put into a position like that, and you're trying to do as best as you can, and you just want to make sure that this person is safe. That's the important thing, is making sure that they're safe and that they know that you're part of their support system.
Yeah. So have you, Ms. Salas, had students come to you just or like reach out to talk or have these conversations?
Yeah, I actually have. Not necessarily share that they're suicidal, maybe share that, in the past, maybe they were suicidal, now they're getting the help that they need. I think also, I have, not myself, but I have had a family member that was suicidal. I've had multiple of them. So, in a sense, when students do come, it can trigger for me how I felt as an outsider kind of seeing. And so what I do with my students is I let them know, I'm here for you. And I also acknowledge that it takes a lot of courage to share those thoughts with someone. So when I do have a student share, I will tell them, say, hey, I had a family member too. I don't know what it's like, but do know that I'm here to give you support too.
Yeah.
And I'm here to be there for you. And I want to thank you. And I always tell my students, hey, I'm honored that you shared that with me, because it does take a lot of courage to just open up and just be like, it's like you open up the can of worms or something, and or the little thing, the Jack in the Box, and the little squiggly things come out like that. It's like, yeah, so like it hits you in the face. But it's being able to, whenever I talk to them, it's just, I'm here. I may not understand what you're going through, but I'm proud of you for sharing that with me. And, never dismiss what they're feeling, because they have every right to feel what they're feeling. And it may look different. For some, it might be that they're learning how to deal with it, of maybe trying and they didn't succeed and now they're going through life, or there's some that are just feeling, at that point they're feeling suicidal. So it's kind of just like seeing where they're at and offering you, that support during those times that they're in.
Yeah. It's hard to be vulnerable or open up like what you have to say or things going on in your life to someone. Even a close friend, it's hard. And so I think, but just having and knowing who that person is you can go to, or a trusted adult who you can call, is really helpful. So why is it important these days to bring awareness to mental health and suicide and depression?
I think it's important because it's important. I'm just kidding. But no, I think it's really important because it's so prominent nowadays. And I think there's just so many factors that lead people to feel that way. Social media, people want to look a certain way, or people want to act a certain way. Just in general, of things that are going on around in their personal environment, I think have a lot to deal with it. So it's really important because a lot of cultures see it as taboo. For example, I'm Mexican. So for me, I used to, when I was younger, I went to go see a therapist once, just, and I will own it. It doesn't bother me. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Went to go visit my grandparents, and my grandpa's like, what, you crazy? I go, no, I'm not crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm just going to go talk and share how I've been feeling to someone that can help me work through whatever it is I'm going through.
Yeah.
And so, it's seen as crazy. You're crazy. No, that doesn't necessarily mean that. Some people do have, mental health issues that, can also lead to that, depression and suicide and stuff. But, I'm okay. At least I feel like I'm okay. So I think it's really important to share it because, it can be a matter of life or death for some people. And you want to be able to show support and be supportive because, unfortunately, we live in a country, fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, we live in a country where we have freedom of speech. So we're able to share about that. But there is a lot of, our country is a melting pot. So there's still a lot of, cultural backgrounds where, they're still kind of like unsure about it. But I think it's important to share because it's not going to just happen in, one certain household. It's going to happen in a variety. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what color you are, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. So it affects who it affects. And, making sure that there is awareness is just really important.
Yeah, totally. So
Yeah, sorry, before you go, Katie, can I make a point real quick?
yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay. So I really think, if we're speaking to the whole class right now, I think the people who are able to become the most vulnerable and open up are really the strongest, because like that takes a lot for somebody to do that. And so, yeah, you're not looking really weak. Like that takes a lot for a person to do that. So if you're able to do that and get the help you need, then you're being really strong, in fact, which kind of sounds ironic, but it's not.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I totally
I
agree
agreed with
that. Yeah. So we're going to end this presentation with some resources. There's always the suicide prevention hotline for the country as a whole. And so it's 1-800-273-8255. You can text the crisis text line, text HOME to 741-741. In your Clever portal, there is the Say Something app where you can report anything of yourself or a friend if you see any signs of suicide or depression, and that will get to school administration anonymously. Amit Nathaniel works with Tokay, and he is part of the No Child Abuse program, and he deals with suicide and depression in students. And of course, your Tokay counselors are always here to help. Miss Salas is a great resource, or your counselor. You can go to the school page, tokay.lodausd.net/counseling, or contact them through Instagram or their personal emails. And of course, you can also email tokayconflictmanagement@gmail.com if you have any more questions. You can also reach out to us on our social media platforms. We have Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter and YouTube. So it's a great way to get connected with your conflict management class. Is there anything else you guys would like to say before I end the video?
Thank you, Ms. Salas, for joining me.
Thank you for taking the time today.
Yes.
No, thanks, guys. I appreciate it anytime.
Yes. Awesome. So we'll see you guys later.